Hi, this is Ms. Mason Explains Adolescent Development. So the next phase of development that we're going to talk about is adolescence. Now, I know you guys think that adolescence is really important, but believe it or not, a lot of developmental psychologists they have not been focusing on adolescence. Instead, they've been really focusing on childhood. One of the reasons why this is because of the lifespan perspective. So it's the idea that development is a lifelong process. And to be honest with you, a lot of people don't want to talk about their adolescence. It's not a very fun experience. So again, adolescence, what is it? It's really the transition period. It's very awkward because it's a transition between childhood and adulthood. And what's really awkward is, are you a child or are you an adult? So you're kind of doing that you're teetering on this line of, am I an adult or am I a child? So it's very frustrating. It'd be a very frustrating time period. Also, you're going through puberty, which is embarrassing all on its own, and you're trying to experiment with independence. Mom, Dad, I don't need you to tell me, blah, blah, blah. Okay, this is a huge transition period for all of us in our development. My question to you, are these wonderful kids right here, are they adolescents? You might look at them and say, no, but believe it or not, they are adolescents. They're in middle school, they're 8th graders. So yes, they are adolescents. They're just very young. So what exactly happens during adolescence? Well, one of the most important things is the physical development. You go through puberty. You guys are all experiencing it. It's the time of sexual maturation. We all go through it, all right? So during puberty, you're going to have primary and secondary sex characteristics. You're going to see some changes in your mood and behavior due to all of those increased sex hormones, also known as testosterone and estrogen. You're going to see height changes. That's one of the earliest signs of puberty. Now, girls, I hate to break it to us, but we go through puberty way earlier than the boys. So for a little while, kind of like in, I guess, 4th, 5th, maybe 6th grade, us girls are going to be taller than the boys. And that's just because we start puberty a little bit earlier than boys. All right. So what are these primary sex characteristics? Well, the primary sex characteristics are your reproductive organs. So for us ladies, it's going to be our ovaries, our uterus. Yep. And for men, it's going to be your testes. All right. Your secondary sex characteristics are um, those really annoying things like hair growth, breast development, you know, um, let's see, deepened voice, facial hair, that kind of a thing. All right. So we know that your sexual maturation is going to happen. We just don't know when it's going to start. Some people start as early as 9. Some people start as late as 15, 16. It all depends um, on your biology, really. So maturing early. So I don't know how many of you have experienced this, but maturing early, starting your period early, ladies, starting to develop facial hair for men and your voice go through that cracking phase. Sometimes that can have a social advantage because, you're the girl that has to wear a bra in 4th grade. Been there, done that. But it also comes with increased expectations, um, from the family, from other uh, other kids your age. So it's hard when you mature earlier than the rest of your peers. So something to think about. All right. So social learning theory and gender develop. Now, if you guys remember Albert Bandura, he did the Bobo doll experiment where we learn through observing others, right? Well, the idea that psychologists have come up with is that gender identity is what we learn through observational learning and operant conditioning. So it's through society. we have learned women do this, men do this. We have learned that if we are male, it's because we have the XX chromosome. We're female if we have XY. Or no, male is XY, females are XX. Sorry. But believe it or not, that is just your genetic code. Your gender identity is what you identify. What you identify. And lately, this has been a new word in our psychology, is the idea of transgender. So this is when the gender identity does not match your biological sex. So your hormonal sex, okay? Your DNA sex, okay? So again, gender identity is different from biological sex. Your biological sex is XX or XY. Your gender identity is what do you identify as? Do you identify as a male, a female, a non-binary? What are you? Okay? And we learn this through observational learning, also known as the social learning theory. So, all throughout adolescence, your brain is still developing. It's one of those magical things that the brain is still going to continue. But one thing that we know is that during puberty, your brain is going to stop automatically adding new connections. Okay? What it's going to do is it's going to do a lot of rewiring. It's going to try to clean up some of the things that are not being used and just continue to make new those connections. All right. So early adolescence, this is a crucial time to learn as much as you can. That's why middle school is so important. Does anyone know what the last lobe of the brain, the last lobe to rewire is? Yeah, it's your frontal lobe. So your frontal lobe, which is where all of your emotions, your judgment, your decision making, right? It is actually the last lobe of your brain to get rewired. Okay? So that means that adolescents, you guys understand risk and consequence, but you really, you just don't, you're not. I love this part. Teens have developed a mental accelerator. You know the risk, you know the consequences. But for some reason, teenagers, adolescents, you're not in the habit of using brakes. You just go for the thrill and the reward. This is normal. So just don't give yourself a really hard time. This is what is happening in adolescent brain development. All right. So now, adolescent cognitive development. So that's a little bit different. So according to Jean Piaget, adolescence, you're in the formal observation stage, which means you guys can think about how reality compares to ideals. So what's reality versus, what's the opposite of reality? I don't remember. Fantasy. All right. Think hypothetically about different choices. You can do the pro cons list of a decision. You can figure out how am I going to reach my goal of, I don't know, attending college and paying for it. Okay. So you can figure that out. And you can think about what do others think about me? How are they going to perceive me? Am I hurting their feelings? Okay. So adolescence, you're in the formal operational stage of the Piaget cognitive development. So now we're going to build our moral reasoning. So up until the age of 9, you are in the pre-conventional stage. So Lawrence Kohlberg came up with the theory of moral development, and he basically came up with 3 stages. You have pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. Now, I think this is really funny. So pre-conventional is up until the age of 9. Conventional is most adolescents, and believe it or not, most adults. Post-conventional is only about 10 to 15% of adults over the age of 20. And here's what they are. So pre-conventional, you're going to define right and wrong based on, are you going to get punished or rewarded? Punished or rewarded. Conventional, this is if you're going to do something, is it going to please others, or is it going to, obey laws? All right. Is it because it's against the law? So it's law and order. And is it going to please others? Post-conventional, this is the one that gets really interesting. This is the one where if you had to choose to steal a loaf of bread because you're starving and your family is starving, you're going to say, you know what? The um, the good outweighs the bad. So you're going to know right from wrong by your personal values, by um, your own moral beliefs. And that's post-conventional. A lot of us don't have that. It's really interesting. Okay, so that is moral reasoning with Lawrence Kohlberg. All right, so that's the Kohlberg theory. So now you know how to apply it to your social, oh gosh, to your story, to your development story. All right, so moral intuition. So this is that quick gut feeling decision. Sometimes our intuition is not just based on moral reasoning, but also with disgust or with elated feelings. So disgust is, feeling disgusted about something, or elevated feeling knowing that we're going to be rewarded for whatever we are doing. All right. So an example of the moral intuition would be if you had a hypothetical choice of saving 5 people from an oncoming trolley, but if you do that, you're going to kill one person. So a lot of people would choose to save the 5 people, and not because of reasoning, but because they would feel disgusted in themselves. They would say, you know what? I would save the 5 people because 5 people versus one person. Okay. So interesting what we all would choose to do. All right. So again, character education. So how are we going to learn to choose actions over selfishness or social pressure? So there's a lot of different things. We can serve others. We can have delayed gratification. Ooh, we learned that word before. We can have self-discipline, learning to resist our impulses. And we could start to really have empathy for others' feelings. So that's kind of how we're going to move from one level of the moral development theory to the next. All right. Okay, so this is where I'm going to stop, and we're going to pick back up here in the next video.